Welcome back, farmers. Today I'm going to be talking about the 3 things I wish I could go back and change if this was the beginning of May and not the beginning of August. For starters, I would go through and I would include trellis systems in my garden. There are so many benefits to trellises, and I did not understand that coming in. I planted all of my vining vegetables, cucumbers, acorn squash, watermelon, anything of that nature. I planted them way too close together, and it's created just a giant bunch of plants, and they all wrap around each other, and they're just not able to produce as much as they possibly could if I would have put in trellises. If you put in a trellis, not only are you saving square footage, those plants will grow as high as that trellis is. So I kind of messed up, and I'm not quite getting the production that I was hoping for. I'm getting quite a few cucumbers and squash, but overall I really do think that next year I need to do a better job of planning my garden. So that brings us to point number 2, planning the garden and just doing an overall better job of understanding how much room plants need in between each other. So when they give you directions on the seed packet about how far the plants need to be apart, I would pay attention to that. They're not putting that on there for no reason, and I'm figuring that out the hard way. So I talked earlier about the vining plants having that issue, but another main component of the garden that is having that very same issue about being too close together are my tomatoes. I'm getting good production from those as well, but like I said earlier, they're just not producing like they would if I would have trellised them correctly or spaced them out and took proper care of them right from the beginning. Another component of the planning issue that I'm talking about is knowing when to put plants in the ground and whether or not you still have time to start seeds early on. For me, I was under the impression that if you didn't put your plants in the ground by mid to late May, you're going to be too far behind, and things like peppers and tomatoes will just never be able to produce if you start seeds and transplant them into the garden, say in mid to late June, which I've learned this year that that's not the case. So next year I do plan on taking seeds and starting them, in the middle of May and late May, and if they don't make it to the garden until the middle of June, that's okay. So that's another aspect of planning that needs a lot of work on my end. There's a lot of things that I can change as far as planning overall when it comes to where plants are going in the garden. For me, I put the peppers too far apart, I put the vining plants too close together, so instead of just seeing open space in the garden and putting a new plant there, next year I need to do a lot better job of planning beforehand where things need to go. The third thing that I'd go back and change is variety selection. I'm learning very quickly that having 20 different types of tomatoes and 20 different types of peppers just really isn't feasible for the amount of time that I spend in the garden. I realize now that some varieties are different than others. For example, when you're selecting a variety of tomatoes, you want to know whether it's going to be determinate or indeterminate. If you pick a lot of determinate and indeterminate tomato types and you try and grow them together, it doesn't quite work out as well as if you're putting all the indeterminates in one area and determinants in the other, because indeterminates are going to just grow as high as possible as long as you keep them trellised, and your indeterminates are going to be a little bit more bushy. They're going to put off those sets of tomatoes early on, and then they'll all ripen together. If I would have known this going into the summer, I would have planned a little bit better. It all comes back to planning. If you plan on growing a lot of different vegetables like cucumber, tomato, peppers, sweet potatoes, they all grow in different ways. And if you can shrink the amount of varieties that you have in the garden, you're going to see a lot more success, because overall each plant does grow differently. So if you only have a few types of each one, it's going to be a lot easier to keep track of than 20 different varieties of 20 different plants. Overall, I think that my garden is doing really well this year, and I've been very happy about the amount of vegetables that I'm taking out of it on a weekly basis. I know that there are a lot of improvements that I can implement in order to grow a lot more next summer. Like I've said in plenty of the videos that I've posted before, I'm willing to make mistakes so you don't have to. I feel like this is a learning process, And of course I'm not going to have the same insights as somebody that's been gardening for up to 20 years, but the reason I even record these videos is so that way I can look back and see the progress that I've made. And if you'd be interested to see what the garden looked like even at the beginning of the summer compared to now, it's such a huge difference. So who knows, within the next 5 to 10 years I'm going to look back at some of these videos and go, well yeah, of course you're going to need to do that. How did you not know then? But overall, this is a learning process, and I'm going to document each and every step of the way, even if I mess up. And I just want to share some of the issues that I've been running into as my first full year of being able to take care of my garden. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, do that. If you haven't followed me on Instagram, do that, because if you follow me on Instagram, I will send you the P.O. box, and all you have to do is send me a self-addressed envelope, and I will send you back some free seeds that are super rare. The KS white ties, I have plenty of them growing in the garden right now, so if I do run out, there are going to be plenty more in the near future. Also, if you haven't followed me on TikTok, do that. I'm at 90.5K. I'm really trying to reach 100K by the end of the year, so if you could help me reach that goal, that'd be fantastic. Thanks for watching, and I hope your plants are growing just as well as mine.